Hello and welcome to Lean Made Simple, a podcast for people who want to transform their business and their lives one step at a time. Today we're at the 2-Second Lean Summit right here in Limavady in Northern Ireland, and we got to sit down with Norm O'Hara. He travelled all the way from China. He's got an amazing lean operation there, and we're excited for the next podcast. We really hope you enjoy this episode.
If you feel like you're pushing a locomotive, you're doing it wrong. There's been a lot of times where it's felt like that. The idea of fix what bugs you is that you're willing to raise your hand and say, this bothers me.
So, there's a lot of cool companies represented at this summit. There's people who make doors, there's people who make chairs. I think Norm probably wins the award for the most fun company making trampolines, so Springfree Trampolines. And I have to say, this is what I wanted to say to you off mic, but I want to do it now. Norm has made a massive impact in our business already, just from the very, very get-go, from right off the bat when we've jumped into lean, because you have this unbelievable video series on YouTube that I've sat and I've watched every single video. And it's one thing to read 2-Second Lean or listen to a podcast or something. It's another thing to see improvement after improvement after improvement. Even in something like trampolines, we make podcasts, we don't make trampolines, but it gets your brain in that rhythm. Yeah. And so thank you, I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, well, it's our honor, really. It's a privilege. Thanks for watching.
Absolutely. So we'll be sure to put a link to that in the description as well, and would highly recommend working your way through that series. Yeah. Can you share a little bit about why you decided to make those so high production?
Yeah, what we decided right at the beginning with our videos was, let me go back one step. One of the key parts of 2-Second Lean is a morning meeting. And when we decided we were going to do this morning meeting, we had to ask ourselves, you're going to have 200 people, we've got 200 staff, attend this meeting every day. And what we decided to do, it was going to be a 15-minute meeting. And then after that, you had 15 minutes to get your work area cleaned up and make any improvements. So it's half an hour a day. And so what you end up getting is with 200 people, that's 100 hours of labor that you're spending just doing training and sort of getting ready for the day. And our thinking was, okay, we want to make sure that in that half an hour, it's as full and dense as possible. And so when we started, we actually had people, they'd do a video and they're kind of shifting it around and explaining it. And some were long-winded, and you'd get 2, 3, 4-minute videos. And we were like, every one of these videos, every minute is actually a minute of video is actually costing us 200 minutes of labor time. Wow. Yeah. And so we said, we've got to get these down to a really concise length of time so that we can show them, because we show about 4 to 5 every day at our factory. And so we actually treated our videos like a product. And we said, you've got to make these videos a certain length. It's got to be clear enough that even if you can't, if the sound is bad, because sometimes it's right in the factory, that you could almost watch it and you could understand it. Now we do voiceover and things like that, but that was the idea. It has to have really good production value for folks out on the factory floor. Sometimes that's not always the top of the mind kind of thing. But we said, make it really good production quality. It's got to be just 30 seconds. That's our target. If you can do it faster, perfect. But the idea was you had to do a really, really tight, high quality video, and it's worked really well for us, and that's kind of something we really pride ourselves on.
Yeah, and it really shows. And I have to give you another compliment. You've got a great voice.
Oh
no, seriously, honestly, like the voiceover component to it is very, very well done.
Oh well, full disclosure, almost all of them are actually done in Chinese at our factory when we're showing them during the morning meeting. So I just do the voiceover for the ones that I put online. But, so thank you though.
Well, we appreciate the extra time for making it accessible for guys like us.
Yeah.
It's very, very cool.
That's
so okay,
great.
On to the official first question.
Yeah.
Norm O'Hara, how did you first come across lean, and what was the before and after effect of your life?
Yeah, you know what? We started lean about 5.5 years ago, and we always kind of think of it in 3 buckets. You've got the bucket of the things you know, and then there's the things you know that you don't know them. They're out there. I haven't studied it, but I know about it. And then there's a third bucket that's the scary one that you don't even know what's out there. And that's probably by far the biggest bucket in most of our lives. And we had heard about lean. I'd heard Six Sigma and Toyota Production System, all these things, but we really didn't think it applied to us. We didn't think it had anything to do with us. And one day, one of our engineers was out working in the factory, and we had some machines we had to move that were it was a little bit tight, and so he was trying to figure out how to configure them. And he came and got me and said, "Hey, come look what we've done." And they had put they'd put 3 machines kind of so that you could stand in the middle and you could just do 1, 2, 3, just like that. And we were like, hey, that's really cool. That's a good idea. And about a month later, one of our customers came to visit us. His name is Paul Crowell, and he makes this great product, the Net Return. He's a customer of ours. And he said, that's a U-shaped cell. That's really good. I was like, oh, is it? I didn't know. And he said, you know what you need to do? You need to read Paul Akers' book if you're into that kind of thing. And we went, after he left, I went onto the website, and sure enough, there's Paul Akers. The book is free. I downloaded it.
Come on.
And I started, as I was walking back and forth to work every day, I would listen to this, and about 4 or 5 days passed, and I was finished it. And I was like, this guy is talking about stuff that is exactly, that fits our business perfectly. And right around that time, he was doing a trip to Japan. And so I didn't think he would ever say yes, but I just sent him a note and said, if it's possible, I'd love to come. And so that was within about 2 months. I had been introduced to 2-second lean and then went to Japan. And so it was overwhelming.
Wow.
But you know what? It completely, we realized that we actually thought we were doing well. And once you started to see, first you see what it's like in Japan, but then you started seeing, these factories and this tour, and especially when you do it with Paul Akers, I mean, he's explaining things at a level, and you start to see waste. That's what it really is. And we came back to the factory, and it was like you don't wear glasses, but when you get a new prescription, all of a sudden everything's crisp and clear, and you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe how bad I could see before. The whole place, we were like, we are really not doing very well at all. And so that kind of started it right there. We had our eyes opened to waste.
Wow.
And how sloppy we were. And so we just went full at it. And, it's one thing that's really fortunate for us. At the Chinese factory, we have an awesome team. And we came back and we said, we've seen something that could completely transform our business. And we could actually become, if you walk by us on the street, you would just think we're another average factory. You'd never know. But we could say inside, we could actually create something world-class. And maybe no one would know about it, but this could be a world-class business. And at first, they're like, what are you talking about? We're just a small little trampoline company. But we just set about doing it, and we just followed the book. We started morning meetings, we started making improvement videos, we started doing Gemba walks every day, and we added in all these tools, and just stuck with it. And it's completely transformed our business. It really has. Yeah. After, I'll give you an example of one thing that we realized that we didn't even know how bad we were. One of the things, we came back and we started looking at the 8 wastes. And we picked transportation as our first one, and we wanted to understand how much of our labor force was actually doing transportation. And we counted it up, and at the time, we had about 270 employees, and we found that like 35 to 40 people were just moving stuff around. Wow. And so it was embarrassing to say, but we were like, what are we doing? How is it possible that we've got our systems are so poorly designed that we have that? And so now we're down to just 4. We've just got 4 people who are our main water spiders, that we call them, that move product around. And before, it was 35. And so that was an example where we didn't even know that we were bad. And then you flip it over and you go, what were we doing?
Really interesting.
Yeah. So it's transformed the business. It really has. Yeah.
You actually were speaking to me more than you could have thought. I wear contact lenses.
Okay. Oh, there you go.
And so there are times where I'm going to really embarrass myself here, okay? I could lie and say, when I was a child, but it's not true. There'll be times where I will clean my glasses.
Yes.
And I'm like, who turned 4K on?
Yeah, no kidding. That's what it's like. Yeah.
And I feel like, lean, the first time you're exposed to, whether it's a book or you see a video or whatever it is, it's like, oh my word, I didn't realize I needed prescription glasses.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and you come back and you're like, all the 4K detail of your business, you're like, oh, does it really look like that?
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah. And you know what? I think of it this way, I'm just so grateful that I picked up that book, because sometimes you get these opportunities and they just pass right beside you, and you either you take it or you don't take it.
Yeah.
And we could have missed it. How many times do people say, oh, you should read this book? And we go, yeah. And just never get around to it.
It's really interesting. Something I've heard Paul say before is something like every 30.
Yeah, every like 30 days, you just get these it's like the universe gives
like
you
a life-changing opportunity.
Yeah.
But you can miss it.
And you could just miss them. They just pass right by, and they're just right beside you. And so we're really, it's blessed our business. But you know what it is? It's our the entire company, right? As a whole, we're down to 200 employees, and every one of them has a better experience at work, right? There's a lot more dignity in their work. We've taken out a lot of the waste, right? And so instead of going to work every day and a couple hours are just a real pain, or you're doing something that's uncomfortable, or you're struggling with something, we've said all of those things we want to pull as much of that out as we possibly can.
Love it.
And so it's transformative.
Yeah. So if we were to kind of look through your improvement hall of fame, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite, like something that is a standout, like this just made a huge difference? Our people love it. Every time I think about it, I get happy.
Yeah, there's a bunch. We make quite a few improvements, but there's one that I really love. Just by the way our offices and our buildings are laid out, we've got 3 different buildings, and then we've got an office. And we used to, if you wanted to get out onto the factory floor where the action really happened, if you're an engineer or someone in the office, you had to kind of do this circuitous route around, and it would be about 500 meters round trip, and not a big deal, but it's enough. And so it was far enough that people wouldn't go out on the factory floor if they could avoid it, and if they needed to, it was just taking a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And we just had this idea, what if we just knocked down the walls and let's just put a bridge right through, right? Wow. So that you could be from your office onto the factory floor in like 15 seconds. And it used to be about a 2-minute thing. And so we did that. We busted it down. We put in a bridge. We tried to make it nice, covered it over in case it's raining or stuff like that. And what we found is that like in that one change, we're saving something like 1,000, what did we work it out to? It's like 1,000 minutes every day. And so that's just 1,000 minutes of our engineers, of supervisors.
Goodness.
So, and then not only that, because we did it, it's so accessible now that people are on the floor much more, right? And it's kind of broken down this barrier where, the office is over here and the factory floor is over there. So that's been one of our big wins. And we really celebrate that when every time we cross the bridge, we were like, yeah, this is
a
nice one.
Yeah. It's like we have a small thing in the studio, small improvement where like everything can be turned on with a Stream Deck button. And like, it's almost like, do you want to press it this time?
Exactly,
Do you know what I mean? Because you get so giddy about it. You're like, okay, sure, it took us 2 hours to set up.
Yeah.
But yet the satisfaction every time.
Oh, it pays off literally day after day after day.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. If we were spending 1,000 minutes, so I don't know how many hours that is, every single day of people walking around, that's today and then tomorrow and then a month from now and a year from now. That's starting to it just extrapolates ahead. So
exciting.
That's a big one, but it was a fun one for us.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you start your lean journey, you get really excited. It's kind of like a honeymoon period, and you feel like Bruce Almighty. You're like improvement. Whoa, this is awesome. And then inevitably, like any journey, there's like you hit an obstacle or you hit a bump or you start having to push the wheelbarrow up the hill.
Yes.
What were some of those kind of early obstacles, things that slowed you down? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, there's a line in Paul Akers' book that says that if you feel like you're pushing a locomotive, you're doing it wrong. And there's been a lot of times where it's felt like that. One of the challenges we had was actually cultural. Mm-hmm. The idea of fix what bugs you is that you're willing to raise your hand and say, this bothers me. And a lot of our workers, they would refuse to do that because it was sort of like, oh, I'm the complainer. The nail's sticking up, they're just going to hammer it down. And so people wouldn't give us improvements early on not because they didn't see opportunity, but because they didn't want to complain. And it was actually from a place of just, we're trying to be respectful. I'm not going to create any problems. I don't want to create any ripples. And so we knew that there were things that could be improved, and we could see them. And so when we'd see them, we'd make an improvement. And I say we, some of the engineers or whatever, but we couldn't get people right on the lady who's sewing or the guy who's welding. We couldn't get him or her to tell us something. And finally, what changed it was that we would encourage them we wanted them to be comfortable. That was kind of we instead of saving time or saving even some of the waste, we said, just want you to be comfortable. Take away the burden. And you'd go right up to someone and stand beside them, and you'd see them bending over, or you'd see them twisting or getting up and going over to get something and coming back, and getting up and coming back. And we'd say, what can we do so you don't have to do that anymore? And slowly, as they began to feel that, this is actually not, I'm not getting in trouble for complaining. I'm actually I'm actually making my work easier. There's less struggle, there's less burden, and I'm actually working faster, so my pay starts to go up, my quality is going up, whatever. My comfort, at the end of the day, I'm not as stiff or sore. They start to see the wins. That sort of unleashed just a tidal wave. And so It was a real struggle, to be honest, at the beginning, because we're thinking, oh, are we going to have to come up with all these improvements? And that would have been a complete failure. But once our team started to feel sort of empowered that you're not complaining. You're telling us a problem that we shouldn't. It's our responsibility to try to help you get that burden out of there. I mean, just from a position of dignity, right? It's not right that they have to suffer. To build trampolines, I don't want our staff suffering on that. It should be fun. It should be as simple and as easy as possible. And that just opened it. It was a tidal wave, to be honest. After that, our improvements just shot through the roof.
Wow.
And it was really exciting. Yeah.
It's really interesting. Like, just had a picture of, like, you needed to find a very unique key that was specific to your culture.
Yeah.
That would unlock permission for people.
That's what it was.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really, really crazy. And then once they had that permission, then the floodgates opened.
Yeah. It really did.
Really cool.
Yeah.
So, final question, Norm. For someone listening or watching who maybe is at the start of their lean journey, or they haven't started yet, or maybe they've kind of fallen off the bandwagon a little bit, what encouragement would you give them? Where would you kind of signpost them? Give us a little bit of that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, there's been a lot of times, even where even with the ideas coming in, you kind of feel like this is running out of gas. And the two things that have been really good for me is time on the floor. It's not really so much as if you're pushing lean, then it's going to be a struggle. But if you're just helping those ideas flow, then you hit the sweet spot. And so what I found is that whenever things are going bad, I need to just spend more time on the factory floor. It's almost a trigger for me that, man, the ideas are coming a little slow. I need to get back out on there. And not because I'm walking around saying, come on, give me ideas. It's actually, I'm out there. I'm on the same team as the folks out on the factory floor, or even just give an example in accounting. You go over and you're how are things going? What's giving you grief? And people can always tell you something that's wrong, but they need that touch. And so I would say if you're struggling out on the factory floor, that's where that really stirs it up. The other thing is just a good community around you. We're here at the conference. So many of the people here have, on the days where you're down, they're coming up they're sharing a video of some awesome idea, and you go, man, that's a good idea. And you can actually take some of those exact ideas back to our own factory, or they're saying, hey, this just happened today, or this is something I'm going through. You realize you're not alone, that this is a journey that just about everybody walks through, and the hard days will come, because you know what it is. I'll give you an example. We shut down for the summer. This year's a bit of a slow year, so we shut down, and no matter how good of a job we do cleaning up our windows, making sure that it doesn't leak, you come back and there's dust, right? It's just naturally, it's gravity that things are going to start going down.
Wow. So
you have to, every single day, you got to dust things. Every single day, you got to help people kind of keep pushing. And it's just a steady push, a steady hand in the right direction, and just keep at it.
I love that. Man, Norm, that was awesome.
Well, thank you.
You did a great job.
Oh,
First podcast.
That.
Come on, man.
I appreciate that.
That's like a world-class one right there.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. Where can people find you if they want to connect? Or
you can get me on WhatsApp, or you can get me on Signal, or on my YouTube channel. There's an email address there. I can give you all those details. Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. Brilliant. Anytime, any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I love the generosity, and I also love the leadership from the front. That is a big kind of thing that I keep seeing in guys like Ryan and guys like you, and so I'm really inspired by that, and so appreciate everything that you shared.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening or watching. If you'd like to find out more about Norm, like I said, there'll be links in the description of wherever you're watching, and there are now a steadily expanding back catalogue of Lean Made Simple podcasts. If you'd like to find out more, check out some more of our interviews that we've done with people at the summit, or dive into some of the lean principles where Ryan unpacks over almost, I nearly lied there on tape. I nearly said almost a decade of experience doing lean. Thanks, guys. Really, really appreciate it. See you soon. I think I said learn instead of lean there. We'll roll with it.